Hey everyone, welcome back to Reading with Tatiana. Today I'm reviewing a physical book. Finally, my book clubs I've all caught up, and instead they've always been picking really popular books that's been really hard to get a hold of physically at the library. But this book I just was able to pick up when I went to the library, and it's been on my to be read, and I'm just so glad because I freaking love reading physical books. Because when I read electronic books, I read it off my phone. I'm not sure if I want to get a Kobo or Kindle just because I don't need another device. And it's fine on my phone, but I just find that with a physical book, I really enjoy it a lot more. So today I'm reviewing Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, and I gave this book a 5 out of 5. Before I go into my full book review, I want to give a shout out to Books and Bow. I watched their review of Yellowface on YouTube. I'll link their video down below, specifically on the review of this book. And I really enjoyed listening and watching their review and their commentary, and show them some support. I'll link their channel down below. And as always, if you're watching this video, I always appreciate if you hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and if you have read Yellowface or any of other R.F. Kuang's work, I'd love to hear it down in the comments below. This book was published this year in 2023. The genre it falls under is contemporary fiction. I think it kind of falls under also social commentary, and I've also seen that people put it under satire. A bit about the author R.F. Kuang. She is very accomplished at a very young age. She was born in China but immigrated to the US when she was 4 years old. I just found out that she's 27, so she's super young, and I've heard her name all around, and I feel she's a very prolific writer as well, so this is pretty awesome. She is a number one New York Times bestselling author of the Poppy War trilogy and Babel. When I looked up those books, I was really surprised because it's such a different genre than Yellowface. So I think it's really cool that she delves into very different genres. She has a Master of Philosophy in Chinese Studies from Cambridge and a Master in Contemporary Chinese Studies from Oxford. So she's very well educated, and now she's pursuing a PhD in East Asian languages and literatures at Yale. It's actually interesting to learn all this about her because I feel there are some similarities with Rebecca R.F. Kuang and also one of her characters in this book, Yellowface, Athena Liu. Let me know what you think so down in the comments below. A bit about the premise of this book. So we meet June Hayward, who later becomes Juniper Son or publishes under the name Juniper Son. And so basically she is a writer. She has had one debut novel in her life, but it kind of flopped. And it's very important in the context of this reviewing this book that she is a white American woman. And so basically she went to Yale and she had a classmate, Athena Liu, and they were kind of on this parallel journey of becoming writers together, making it big and that kind of stuff. They were classmates, colleagues, very similar experiences. But Athena Liu, she had a very groundbreaking novels right out of the gate of Yale, and she was this she became a famous best-selling novelist very early on in their mid to late 20s. So then this book starts, and then basically Athena and June are friends. They hang out, but they kind of have this passive aggressive friendship where it's kind of humble bragging but not really, and that obviously they have so much in common because of their shared experiences of going to Yale and writing and that kind of stuff. But there's always kind of unspoken competitiveness where Athena Liu is obviously winning right now and June is kind of a bit spiteful. So one night they go drinking, they have fun, and they're super drunk. So they're having this pancake eating contest, and all of a sudden Athena chokes and then she dies. And this happens really early in the book, and it's very jarring. And then basically the paramedics come, and that's that. But here's where the story starts. Is June, she takes Athena's first draft of a manuscript with her, and then basically she works on this manuscript off the manuscript's first draft and writes this whole book that becomes a bestseller. And why this is so controversial is because Athena Liu's manuscript was about these Chinese laborers that served in World War I on behalf of France, and basically it's about this Chinese experience, and Athena Liu is also Chinese. June Hayward, however, is white, and she basically finishes his manuscript it's this amazing book. She makes lots of money, she gets published, she becomes this sensation overnight, and people are having this like uncomfortable situation where it's like, oh, but June Hayward is like white, and then she also like publishes a book as Juniper Person, which is kind of like an ambiguous Asian name. So this book kind of talks about, you know, the reality of who can say whose stories, because June Hayward kind of says in her mind that even though Athena Liu is ethnically Chinese, like she had a very privileged life and she was like quite westernized as well. So that's kind of like interesting commentary this book talks about. And this book talks also about June Hayward slash Juniper Person's experience when her book gets published, and having a backlash from like booktubers like me and you, from like book critics, from Goodreads, from the Twitterverse, and also the experience being in a publishing house, and how, you know, in publishing houses they're like, oh, like we only need like one Asian writer, we need more diversity, we need to amplify certain voices, we have a quota on how many voices we should amplify from each ethnicity. So that's where I'm going to stop about this book, because I don't want to like talk about the book too much further, because I think it's such an entertaining read. But that's kind of the premise of the book, and it's just so interesting because it's like a satire of like real life. And you know, it does bring a lot of interesting points, because can only certain ethnicities write about their own ethnicity? I think yes, to a certain extent, but also no, because if you do the work, if you study it, if you're passionate about it, if you have exposure to it, then, you know, I think you do have the authority to write the story about it. So I don't know, this book has, it's kind of like an easy, lighthearted read in the sense that it's so chaotic and the characters are just so unhinged, but then it touches on so many deeper social issues in our society, and I think R.F. Kuang does a really good job touching on it, and I'm just so amazed that R.F. Kuang is only 27, because they have their whole career ahead of them. I'm really excited to see what else they will write. I kind of talked about the common themes already with my previous section, but you know, just talking about who has the right to write about different topics, the idea of the publishing industry, you know, how they only want to amplify certain voices. This talks about being a woman in the writing industry. It talks about how powerful the internet can be, but also how toxic it can be, especially when you're writing like reading negative reviews, and how the internet is such a small slice of reality, but depending on what's happening, it can be your whole reality, and how it can be very toxic. And I don't know, this book is just so great. I really recommend it. Things I didn't like about this book. I gave it a 5 out of 5, so there weren't too many things I didn't like about this book. I wish it could be longer. I wish we kind of were given more backstory on Athena Liu and also June Hayward's friendship. I don't know, there's something I really didn't like about this book. There was like a reveal at the end that I also didn't see coming, but when it was revealed, I was like, oh, it was kind of obvious, I guess. I just, you know, was so drawn into the book and the style and the chaos of it that I didn't even notice. Things I like about this book. I like the entertainment value. I like the commentary on our society today. I like the satire. I like how it's a book about books, about the publishing industry, about Goodreads, about Booktube. It's just a very smart book. On Goodreads, this book got a 3.91 out of 5, and I found this book had very jarring reviews on Goodreads. People either loved it or they hated it. I think people that loved it, just like me, just thought it was a fun read. The satire was really great, and the commentary on society is really amazing as well. I think people didn't like it because they felt it was trying too hard. Maybe they felt it was too on the nose, or maybe they didn't like the truthful things that R.F. Kuang said about Goodreads and booktubers and reviewers and that kind of stuff. But you know, sometimes I think you need to take things lightly and just take it with a grain of salt. I just thought this book was really good. And yeah, why I think you should read this book. I think you should read it if you want to spice up your reading. Read a book about social commentary. You care about, you know, white women, Asian women in society and how they fit into those spaces. And you know, I think if you're even Asian American, Asian Canadian, this book will be super entertaining to read. Now I'll share how this book made me feel, because if you ask me a week, a year, 5 years from now, I probably won't remember exactly what this book was about, but I'll also remember how it made me feel. So this book, Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, it made me feel super unhinged, and I'm all here for it. It kind of reminded me of Big Swiss, which is a book I read a few weeks ago or a few months ago, where it's just like this like female protagonist who's just doing what she wants and is super unhinged, and maybe we're not rooting for her specifically, but we can see where she's coming from. It was just really great. Thanks for watching until the end of my book reviews for Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. If you read it down below, I'd love to hear what you thought, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!